today. I'm in ProCreate right now, and I'm gonna start some. I want to do some sketching for you guys. Let's see. Let's start off with HB. HB is pretty good. Excuse me for all the pen taps, because the pen taps are also being recorded along with this program. So unfortunately, I can't do anything about that unless I have an external microphone or something like that. So yeah. So yeah, this just wanted to have a little fun, show you guys what ProCreate is. I mean, for any artists, I'm assuming you probably know what ProCreate is. It's a drawing app for iPad. Um, but just wanted to make sure, because this app is very, very good, and it allows for artists to be experimental and creative. Not saying you can't do that with traditional. Digital gives you the flexibility in being able to do stuff like for example, just for example, if I wanted to draw a box. Actually, you know what? Hold on. There we go. We zoom in on this box. Alright, say for example I wanted to do some shading and a ball, and I wanted to erase. If I'm going to erase that ball, I have to make sure I'm very careful with my line quality, because if not, I will erase some of the circle. Oops, I will erase some of the circle just like that. But here's the cool thing about digital. The cool thing about digital is this little button right here. Well, hold on. This little button right here. This one right there. That is the undo button. So if I click it, it gets rid of like whatever I just drew. Down here is the redo button. So that's the redo. So let me click undo and then redo. So see, reappear and take away. So that's the cool thing about digital. So let me erase all of this real quick, and I will explain another cool thing about digital art, which is layers. This thing right here, this thing is the layers. So cool thing about layers is right now layer 1 is with my box, and the check mark means that it's visible. Not visible, visible. Not visible, visible. Yeah, you get the point. So layers comes in handy because the plus sign allows me to add layers. If I wanted to add a layer, I now have layer 2. I can also rename this layer by saying whatever I want. So right now, layer 2 is now on top of layer 1. If I wanted to take that layer, put underneath layer 1, now this layer is underneath 1. So watch what happens when I draw inside or paint inside the circle. So let's do some experimentation. Oh, I went outside the line here. So what we can do is now take that eraser tool, and remember, since layer 2 is underneath layer 1, when I erase, I am not going to erase the oops, hold on for a second. I will not erase this box. This box stays the same. This whole thing stays the same, which is really cool. So let's erase this real quick, and just wanted to give you an idea of layers. So that's another cool thing about digital. Why I like digital. Traditional still has a very good aspect. In the real world, traditional, artists are looked upon as traditional artists, as in traditional art is, it's something real, people can touch it, stuff like that. It's done by hand. But in retrospect, digital is also has advantages over traditional. So first example was me doing me pressing the undo button over and over again. It may seem like a cheat, but also in the real world, that's why we have erasers. But with erasers, if you make a very, like, for example, excuse me, like, for example, I'm inking right now. I have a technical pen. If I make a mark, right? If I make a mark, a character, in the traditional art, this line or this area right here, this area right here, I will not be able to erase that in the real world because traditional pen and not digital pen, you cannot undo this little area right here. So with digital, we can just erase underneath that, and we still have a very good looking image. So, this is just some basic concepts of what digital has over traditional. Let me start sketching something. I know this is boring, you guys, so I'm gonna start sketching something. So let's start off with a ball. So I'm just gonna actually, yeah, why not? Let's choose a jagged. Actually, yeah, let's choose a jagged brush. It's hard. The jagged brush, let's correctly make sure we are on layer 2, okay? Because that way, if we're on layer 2, we can't go out, we can't erase the box. So that's a good thing. So start off by drawing a simple ball. First, we have our when you start off with art, or just in general with shapes and stuff, you don't necessarily have to be perfect. Getting the shape right is good enough, or trying to get the shape right is a very good start, because getting the shape right, if you go straight into detail, you will not, or if you go straight into detail and then finish, put 100 hours into it, and then afterward you step back and you step back from your art piece and all the dimensions are off, you have to start all over again. So that's what ruins a very nice piece. So we have a ball, and let me point out something real quick. This tool right here, this tool allows us to make our brush size bigger or smaller. So I just wanted to point that out. And this tool right here allows the opacities, the brush opacity, so you know whether it can be full or transparent. But we're not going to mess with that. We always want the opacity full blast. Only change the brush size when necessary. We go back to our brush, and now let's focus on some light. If the light's coming from here, wait, hold on. The light's coming from here. You want this area to be the brightest. You want a very, very dark shadow, or a determination value here, which is complete black. And depending on your surface, or depending on how harsh or soft the light is, we're gonna have some reflective light right here, which is bouncing back off the table. So let's do that. Let's focus on that real quick. Okay, let's see. Go back to this real quick. So I'm just getting the shading depending on the light source right now. So the light source is right here. Remember that. Light source is right there. So we want our object to be fairly consistent. And this is a very different kind of brush. It's not going to look smooth, and it's not going to look poorly. This is just a different different brush, depending on that doesn't probably look normal to you guys, because this is digital art and there are custom brushes. So now what I want to do is I want to, in order to make this area look good here, all this right here, I'm going to go back to this color right here, and I'm going to go back and paint over that area, so now we can make a seamless blend. I'm going on a rotation style here, which is very helpful, because now we can get a very nice blend here. Not too much, not too hard. And then probably maybe go back here and fix up some shading here. Go back here. Again, this is all just practice for like values and stuff. So now that we have that, depending on our surface, we can make it depending on the surface, we can where the ball is located, that area the table or surface can be reflective, or like cloth, or like tinfoil, or like a white matte area. So let's just start off by making this a lot easier on ourselves. We're actually going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do background color, and what I mean by background color is all this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this bigger. So I'm going to point out another little tool real quick to help us, so we don't have to resize everything by hand again. That little tool right there, where you see the mouse pointer tool, that is the select tool. If I hit that select tool and I'm on a layer with the box, watch what happens to the box. We can size it. We can size that whole box. Okay. So, I mean, it's not a complete perfect box. It's just something to get us started. So I do not want to warp it. I want to change that. So now let me go back to square. I'm going to go back to my circle. I'm going to take that circle, I'm going to place it in the middle right there. So now that we have that, I'm going to go to our background layer. See how the background changes? See, this is the background. So it does not affect the circle at all. Except the only thing is, if you have a dark background you see more of the highlights. White background, you see all of this area right here. So I'm gonna make my background gray. So there we go. So now we can see a little bit more value structure, or the differences between values. So now what I need to go back and do is reshape some areas, or repaint some areas that look a little bit washed out. Okay. Start here. I'll paint this area here a little bit. And don't worry, we haven't messed up anything. We're just going back and we're gonna apply some highlights and textures and stuff. So make it a little bit darker. So now I have a little bit more smooth. So now what we need to do is do the highlights. So the highlights are going to be all white, and they're going to be, let's make the highlight right here. Let's make all this little area just one point here, the highlight. Oops. Okay. We're going to make this the highlight. So I'm going to start blending very softly that highlight. See how it's getting lighter as we go. It's getting brighter, because that's where we want the highlight to be. Okay. Let's go back over that a little bit. We want a seamless transition here. Okay, looks about right. I'm gonna let me darken some of this area up a little bit more. Okay, just coming along here. Oops, too dark. Okay. Okay, that looks good. Go back to our color picker. Just apply a little bit less strong points here. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, so now we have a lot. So now we have a highlight here. Hold on for a second. Whoops. Gonna go back and make that actual highlight, not not some random thing. So now we have the highlight right there, and now let's focus on our shadows. So now we got the bright white area right here. Let's focus on this area right here. This area. So we're going to seamlessly go back, and we're going to shade. We're going to shade this area right here. Oops. Shade that area to make it a little bit brighter. Okay. And we go back to a darker color. So basically why I'm going back and forth is when rendering something, I want to make sure it has a smooth transition between light and dark. A very smooth transition. Because you don't want something like this, and then you have black right here, and then you have white. You don't want only 3 colors, because that's not realistic. You want a smooth transition throughout this ball. So that's why I'm going back and forth and making sure this is realistic, depending on the lighting. So now that I have that, let's make a surface. Let's make actually, let's get rid of this box. This box was just here to help me. Let's get rid of this box. This box was just there to help me with getting the proportions correct. So, oops, I made a mistake here. So let me correct that. I'm going to take this ball. I'm going to warp it into so it looks a little bit more normal. Well, it is normal technically, but I'm just making it a little bit more like a ball. There we go. I think that looks good. Alright. Now, we have a ball. I'm going to create the surface in which that ball is located. So, let me go here. And for this, I'm going to create a different, well, not create, I'm going to use a different brush for this. Let's use a flat brush. Let's see how a flat brush works. Yeah, I think a flat brush will work. Okay, so we're going to use a flat brush. So depending on the light source, we have the light coming down right here on this part of the ball. We have our terminator, and we have our reflective light right there, which is this part. So now let's create the surface on where that ball is located. Okay, actually, so let me yeah, we're just gonna create a small surface here, and since we have let me blend that to make that look a little bit more like a cloth. Wait, what am I doing? Oh, great. Oh, that's why. Oops. I made a oopsie, people. I was on the same layer as the ball. So I'm gonna redo that layer. My mistake. See, everybody makes mistakes. So let me go back to what we were doing by creating a very nice cloth table look. So I'm just going to render this out a little bit more. Okay. Now we have a like a foreground almost. So now that that ball's sitting on something, it'll all come together once we do a little bit more rendering to it. So because this highlight is here, oops. Okay. Alright, hold on. So because this highlight is right here on the ball, I'm going to focus on the shadows now. Shadows right here. So I'm going to go back to the jagged brush. Well, actually, no, I'm going to use the flat brush still because it's cloth. We want to use the same material for the table, so not a different material. The ball is different. Oops. The ball is different, people. So I want to use the same cloth material. Okay, so right now I'm just going in and I'm just punching in some dark areas because this is where the ball will stand out or have some finesse to it. Okay, rendering where that ball is. Now I'm going to go make this brush a little bit smaller. Go in, darken some areas. Pick a little bit more of that same color. Render this out a little bit more. Remember, since this is the cloth, like kind of like a silky cloth material, we want this to fit in. Like we want this to seamlessly go together. The shadow is also part of the cloth, so the cloth has a shadow with it. So I'm going to convey that. Making it highlight again. Going back and forth to black. Okay. So now we have a nice little shadow there. So we're still not done yet because now, if you look closely, look at this area right here. This area is still a little bit jagged. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch that up a little bit more by going to the jagged brush, and I'm on my ball layer. See, I should call this layer foreground, so, or table. Let's do that table. Okay. Done. Okay. Now we're gonna call this layer ball. Okay. So now we got a table and a ball. So I'm gonna go back and now I'm gonna render some areas of that ball to make sure it's a little bit more clean. So render this by putting in a little bit more darks. We don't want too much dark up here, so I'm going to carefully take some of that out. Let me go back to black. Carefully render this in. Don't be afraid to go too dark. If you go too dark, you're not going to be able to see the shadow or the reflective light. So because we got a very dark cloth, we're actually technically not going to see any of this area right here. Like this area right here, we're not going to see all that. So we're actually just going to fill it in a little bit darker because of our materials, or the material of the table. So just getting a little bit more rendering here. I love the Apple Pencil because it feels very, very smooth in the hand. Sometimes you can drop it or something, but it's not noticeable. But it's still pretty good. And just we're actually gonna round this out a little bit. Actually, let me flip the drawing around. Gonna round this out a little bit more. So I want to be able to have this at least somewhat accurate. Okay. Let me go back to that dark area. Okay. Almost done. I'm gonna go back and darken a little bit more. Okay. Almost done here. Okay, almost done here, because this cloth is not really that reflective, so we don't see much of that that cloth area, or we don't see much of the highlight or the reflective shadows here. Yeah, that's doable. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to get the basic idea down. Yep, just need to get the basic idea. There we go. So, there we go. We have a little, well, it's not little, but depending on all other objects are, we have a very simple shaded, well lit ball, and it's different from the background because the background color is now, it's gray, so that helps us out a lot. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna combine. Well, before I do that, I'm gonna edit a little bit more of the shadows here of the table to make this pop a little bit more. There we go. So you can see that rounded edges now. So you can see that. There we go. There we have it. We have a nice little ball here. So like I said, we got our, oops, I'm still on the I'm going to combine these down so they become one. Oops. So they become one layer. What I'm going to do is merge down. There we go. So now we have one layer. So we don't have to keep on going back and forth. Now we can just draw over it. So as I said before, we have our highlight. We have our very dark areas right here, all in through here. And this area right here is called the reflective light. Right there. So pretty much wraps it up for a very basic tutorial of how brushes work and how undo buttons and layers work in digital art. So in another video of mine, I'm going to do a more advanced, like a little bit more advanced object, like maybe like headphones or an AirPod headphone or something like that, or something simple, where I have a light source and I'm going to draw it directly from that light source. So thanks again. This is danartHD. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, any ideas or suggestions, please comment in the section below, in the comment section below. Also, if you want to see more content, turn on notifications, do all that stuff, and I mean, yeah, and you know, subscribe if you want to see more content. But if you're new to danartHD, if you're new to my channel, so I welcome you, and I hope that you learn a good deal of what happened here. And thank you very much for tuning in, and stay tuned for more. And to make this final, let's create a signature here. Oops, it's not good. So yes, I know my signature needs work, but this is my signature, and there we go. But yeah, so that's the whole idea here, and I hope you guys learned something. I know I'm rambling on. I really don't draw and talk at the same time, but this program is called ProCreate. If you have an iPad, I strongly recommend you get this app. It's a very nice drawing program, and this is called ProCreate. So ProCreate, right there. Oh, I just ruined my drawing. Good thing we have the undo button. So, danartHD, and I'll see you in another video. And peace out.